Hey everyone, thanks again for joining me today. Just a reminder that this series is all about making self-growth more approachable, attractive, and affordable to everyone. And I did this first with the comeback box, and now I'm bringing on a guest every week to unbox their expertise for you. And today, Sylvia Farbstein is joining me. She is a mother with an amazing story, an amazing journey. Her son was diagnosed with the rare form of dwarfism, and they really took that as an opportunity to not be defined or confined by any limitations, perceived or otherwise. And it's led to a really entrepreneurial career path for both of them. Her son, Brandon, went on to write this book, 10 Feet Tall, and they are both advocates and motivational speakers. So I can't wait for you to meet her. Someone is going to win a copy of Brandon's book today, and I also have a discount code for the box for Mother's Day. So I'm going to give that to you in just a minute. And Sylvia is here. Great. Sylvia, come on. Request. Go on. Waiting. Sylvia, I'm hoping. Oh, hi.
Hello. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Oh, I'm just trying to hear you a little louder. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. I need to make you louder. For some reason, it's a little muffled. All right. Sorry about that.
No worries. Hi. You look
Oh,
great.
it's so great to be here with you.
Yes.
So how do we get our books to be turned around so that they're not reversed? Can we do that on Instagram?
Someone has said that there's some trick to do that, but I have not figured it out yet. But
We'll learn that for next time.
Yeah, I will look that up. But it's beautiful, and I started it. It's amazing. Everyone, this book, 10 Feet Tall, was written by Sylvia's son, and she's going to give away a copy today to one lucky winner in the United States. And real quick, there is a 10% discount on the comeback box. You know, I wanted to celebrate mothers, but of course anyone can get it. And the code is Parent Live. And I'll put it in the chat in a minute, but it's Parent Live, and you get 10% off the box. So Sylvia, thanks again for joining. And I think a great place to start would just be to share a bit about your story.
I would love to, but could I spend a second just bragging about your beautiful comeback box?
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I have mine right here. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Aww.
Gorgeous. Contents are amazing. Just the whole design,
Oh my God.
the entire concept. Oh my gosh, it speaks to my heart in so many ways because it gives us the opportunity to show up for ourselves, right? And when we show up for ourselves, we can show up as ourselves, and we can handle all the chaos and crazy noise that goes on in the outside world. And that seems to get louder and louder every day. So I just want to honor you by saying you are a creative dynamo in the design of the box and everything that it stands for.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And I do believe that it's so important to take care of ourselves. And as a new founder, I don't know if you saw, but I recently just had this epiphany that I built the box to help people take care of themselves, and then I stopped taking care of myself. So I'm actually doing the box myself, and if anybody wants to follow my journey, I post it to my stories in a highlight called 28 Days. So thank you. And I want to keep hearing about your experience with the box. So I'll be checking in on you.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I'm a couple of days in, and I love that it makes me intentionally focus on the silent part of the morning. And, you know, if you think about it, I heard this on Clubhouse the other day. Someone shared the word silent and the word listen are the same letters, just in different order. And when you could sit in silence, and just do this beautiful activity where you reflect and you take your inward journey, you are then able to listen to what is on your heart, and you learn to be a more active listener. So it's amazing. So thank you so much.
And
But
I love that. I've
yeah,
never heard that. That's beautiful.
isn't that amazing? Like the magic
Yes.
of Clubhouse, you can go into these rooms and learn these beautiful thoughts that people share.
And by the way, everyone, Sylvia and I met on Clubhouse.
Yes.
So if you haven't checked it out, it is a great way to meet amazing people. I would not know Sylvia without Clubhouse.
Yeah, yeah. The magic of the voice really draws people together, and Clubhouse is just an incredible global connector. But I love what you said, because here you are, designing a product that is about self-development and inner growth, and yet you come to the realization, wait a minute, I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. And I think that runs parallel to parenting in so many ways. So
Okay.
I'd love to share kind of
Yes,
our
please.
story and what got us here. So when I was in the corporate world and gave birth to my son, Brandon, it was 2.5 years after our daughter, Brooke, was born. And things seemed to be going very smoothly. But when I took Brandon on his 2-year checkup, although the pediatrician said to me, he looks great, take him home, I said, but something doesn't feel right in my gut, because at this age, Brooke was changing sizes every so often, and Brandon has been in this size for a while, and it seems like his torso is growing in length but not his limbs, his arms and legs. And so that is when the pediatrician took a closer look and right away sent us to a genetic specialist. And it made me realize the importance of, you can respect, authority and the medical community, but you also have to really hone in on your inner voice and your gut and speak up. So that was the beginning of an epiphany for me. And so Brandon's diagnosis came 6 months later, after the UCLA Skeletal Dysplasia Registry got involved, because it turns out Brandon has a very rare form of dwarfism called metatropic dysplasia, where there are less than 85 medically documented cases in the world.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So for me, to go from being a mom, a working mom in the corporate world that, thought I had everything figured out. I was in the financial services industry. Everything sort of seemed black and white, and I was climbing up the corporate ladder, and all of a sudden getting this surprise that seemed out of nowhere. It was a bit disheartening, especially when we asked the medical doctors, what can we expect? Because my husband, Steve, and I just are very into understanding expectations. And so we wanted to come up with a plan, but what we quickly came to realize is that there's no blueprint, because it's so rare. So
Okay.
we had to really come to the realization that we're not going to get stuck in frustration, anger, or sadness, but we're going to put our energy forth towards giving Brandon the best life possible. And that's what we continue to do. But despite that, as parents, we may have the best intentions, but it doesn't mean that the world is aligned with your intentions. And right. So, Brandon's short stature created some issues. First, medical issues in the first few years. And, we had to deal with a lot of insurance appeals, because they didn't want to cover us taking him to Johns Hopkins for his surgeries. And we kept on coming back to them saying, how can you say that a local doctor here in Virginia can perform this surgery when they've never done the surgery on someone with this condition? So the self-advocacy started developing, and that has laid the foundation of everything that has transpired ever since. So we kind of had to learn how to fight, for innovative solutions, because a lot of times we were told, not just by the insurance companies, but sometimes even the school system, that,
Right.
oh, I'm sorry, we can't do it that way because we've never done it before, or it's always been done another way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it sort of like ignites your soul to figure out a way to convince people to understand the situation, because sometimes no is such an easy answer, but I've learned that no just means not yet, right? So if you sort of convince people like through the lens of the person who needs those adaptations,
Right.
then they become emotionally entrenched in the journey.
Yeah, and I think your story is unique in that, you went through this whole struggle of something that was very rare. But I also feel that a lot of parents go through this in different ways. And I think what's so inspiring is what the two of you have done since then. And all of the ways that you're going on and inspiring people. And parenting was never easy, but the last year has been particularly tough. And I just think it would be great if you could share some of the ways of how are you getting a community on board when your child may be struggling in a way that they don't understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I think it's really important for us to be able to see things through the lens of the child. A lot of times parents feel like, well, this was my experience and this is what I loved, so my child will follow my footsteps. Truthfully, they're not an extension of who we are. And so we really need to be intentional about seeing our kids as individuals for who they are and not the
Right.
vision of who we want them to be. And I think once we come to that acceptance and that unconditional love, despite the fact that their path may be really different than ours was or what we may have envisioned for them,
Mhm.
then it just gives us a sense of clarity and calm. The
Right.
other thing is, I would say, don't be afraid to not just think outside of the box, but sometimes just throw that box out and create your own solution,
Yep.
because our kids are not always going to conform to societal norms or what the school system has spelled out, and you don't need to feel intimidated to sort of come to the table with your team of teachers and staff, and when it includes medical professionals, those as
Sure.
well. The other thing I would say is it's important to build a tribe, a team around you.
Okay.
So I already mentioned, like, definitely form relationships, meaningful ones, with your medical team, with your educators, but also find people in your life that support you no matter what. And that means that
Mhm.
they are there for you. They may not know exactly what you're going through,
Mhm.
but they can be a sounding board or a support system in terms of, you know, maybe even bringing dinner one night or taking you out for coffee or going on a walk with you or just giving you the space to vent. Because I remember during our most challenging times, I felt pretty isolated. And I think that it makes such a difference to be in community.
And one thing that you mentioned, and I wonder if you have any tips on how to do it, is you're talking about building relationships for yourself with your community, but also with teachers, with medical professionals, whoever it may be. Do you have any specific ways? How do you build that relationship with, for instance, a teacher who has hundreds of students or a doctor who has thousands of patients?
That's such a great question. I think you just come to the table as yourself and don't necessarily see them as this like high authority that doesn't want to be bothered. Just literally connect heart to heart, like we're connecting right now. And
Sure.
so perhaps, with a doctor, what I always love to do is have phone conversations with their support staff. And that way I know that they know me by name and I'm not just another number. And if God forbid, and we had this happen several times, if we had an emergency and we needed to get Brandon in a lot sooner than, a typical appointment was available, they knew who I was. So just,
Right.
have conversations, um, connect with them just like you would connect with any other human being. When it came to teachers, a lot of times our school system would send out notices ahead of time letting you know who your child's teacher was. And I'm talking about the early years, the
Sure.
elementary school years.
Sure.
What I would do is I emailed the teachers and I just, briefly told them about Brandon, and they leaned in. They wanted to know more. And
Mhm.
it was beautiful to see that outreach
Yeah.
really makes a difference. A lot of times we tell ourselves stories that limit us in so many ways that, oh, they have too many students. Oh, they're going to be too busy.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And I think if we really focus on being intentional and connecting,
Yeah.
it's magic. It really is. And if they can't help you, they will show you someone else who can.
Hmm.
The doors
Yeah.
are going to open that way.
Yeah. And I know that you're really looking to connect with schools and parents and try and help people. So, just want to give a shout out to the community. If anyone knows a school, an organization, a parent organization, or I think even, an individual parent that Sylvia could benefit, please reach out to her. Sylvia, what is the best way for someone to get in touch with you if they do know an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. On Instagram and
Mhm.
Facebook, my account is Speak Beyond Words.
Mm.
I'm also on Clubhouse and LinkedIn
Okay.
as Sylvia Farbstein, so they can certainly connect that way. Yeah, I'm really passionate about serving audiences with educators or parents that could benefit from my perspective, because especially with this past year and the continuous uncertainty that we're all dealing with, it's really important to understand someone's journey that has gone through it. Because when we share stories, we can always see a part of each other in each other's stories.
Yeah.
And I think that, the tools and the lessons that we learn along the way, I feel like it's imperative for us to share them.
Sure.
So if I can impact, other people, just by sharing things that we've learned along the way, I think it'll make such a huge difference, especially when it comes to those with youth who are not typical in terms of, checking all the boxes and
Sure.
being on that narrow path, because it does sometimes feel like it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I try and encourage this entire community to always be doing is sharing their experience because this past year has been so tough on everyone. But I do think that one silver lining is it has been an experience that we have all gone through and that we can all relate to. And we just need to all be talking about what's going on with us because I think even sharing what's going on with us individually helps other people so much in hearing that you're not alone in doing this. I think another thing that you talk about a lot in Clubhouse that I would love for you to share with this audience is the focus when you are parenting and how the focus can often be so much on your child. And you've talked about placing the focus somewhere else. And I really wanted you to share that today, if you would.
Yeah, sure. I learned this the hard way. 4 years ago, when Brandon was a junior in high school, he was so severely cyberbullied by his high school peers that we had to pull him out of high school. And that experience was so dark and painful and isolating for my son that I was just filled with stress and anxiety. I really wasn't sure how to help him.
Mhm.
And most importantly, I had no idea what his future would entail, because all of a sudden he sort of got kicked off the path that he was supposed to be on.
Mhm.
And I ended up developing shingles. And I remember going to the doctor, and when she diagnosed me, and it was so painful, it felt like 1,000 tooth ice picks were going through me. It was just a terrible, terrible pain.
Mhm.
She gave me the diagnosis, and I said, I always thought this was an older person's disease. And she said, Sylvia, it's all about stress. So that was my light bulb moment. I realized that I've got to get a handle on coping with stress and anxiety. And that really put me into a mindset of just being thirsty for more information. And so, as it turns out, Brandon and I took that really painful experience and we shared our story by using our voice and testifying in front of the Virginia General Assembly. And as a result, in the course of a year, we were able to get two pieces of legislation signed into law. One that requires emotional intelligence and empathy be taught in all Virginia public schools starting in kindergarten.
Wow.
So that really made us feel empowered, right?
Yeah.
Because you could literally transform a very challenging time of adversity into something so powerful that it will change so many lives. Because I feel that when our youth have the dialogue
Right.
of emotional intelligence from such a young age, they will feel so much better about themselves and about each other. And
Right.
I truly feel that is going to have such an impact on bullying. Because if you think about it, bullying is not really about the person who gets bullied. It's more about the one who does the bullying. And they are hurt, so they hurt other people. But
Mhm.
what if we shift the paradigm and teach our youth emotional intelligence from the very beginning? I think that'll
Yeah.
make a huge difference.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, when I built the box, for instance, it is a jump start into the greatest hits of personal development and self-growth philosophies that I've come across. But it is also just about learning somewhat of the basics of mental and emotional well-being. And what has been startling that I realized is that's not something that we are taught in school. We are taught history. We are taught math. I was taught home and economics. I have a very distinct memory of learning how to make a donut in school. But I was 30 years old before someone had a conversation with me about the difference between a thought and a feeling. So I do think that these basic skills of emotional awareness, self-awareness, how to heighten resilience, how to cope with stress, how to process emotions. These are all things that we should be teaching children. And I do think that because it wasn't a part of a lot of adults' education, we have a lot of adults that need to learn those skills as well. And that's something that you've talked a lot about in Clubhouse, is that often when we are parenting, the focus is on our child and how much you have had to turn the mirror on yourself, and really parenting has become you getting more focused and present with yourself. I'm not saying exactly right. I'd love for you to share it.
No, you're absolutely right. The bottom line is that that very painful situation with the cyberbullying changed my life and Brandon's life in so many beautiful ways that we never envisioned. It led us to embark on Brandon's professional speaking career. He had given a TED Talk a couple of years prior when he was 15. And so we pulled him out of school. He's doing the rest of his junior year online, and he started his speaking career. And one of those talks that he gave, someone in the audience said, "Who is your hero?" And he answered Tony Robbins. And literally less than 4 months later, we were invited as Tony's guests to his Unleash the Power Within event, where both Brandon and I walked on fire and spent the next 3 days immersing ourselves in personal development. So that plunge was something that has opened our hearts and minds to realizing that while Brandon's physical stature is limited, as he's just under 4 feet tall, our inner growth is limitless. And what was so neat about the journey was that we have been walking alongside each other, and we've been doing the work and encouraging each other to do the continuous work. And we've just learned so much. So in the process of helping my son find his voice and find a life of impact and fulfillment and meaning, I have realized that I need to show up for myself, because that is what personal development is all about. You have to show up for yourself and literally unearth all of those limiting beliefs and things that you may have been told in your past that for one reason or another you internalized and are holding you back. And once I started doing the work, and I think also when you reach a certain age and season in life, you feel a lot more confident in who you are, and you're not as worried about getting acceptance from other people. You realize the most important part of acceptance is that of yourself. Right. So that combination of work really enabled me to realize that I can show up as myself in my fullest power. And it's an evolving process. I'm still working on it. I think we all are. Like, I mean, we all are. Yeah. Right? Like, we never know exactly who we are meant to be at any given point in life. Sure. But as we look back, we realize how far we've come, right? Because we've been handling all kinds of twists and turns and unexpected things that have been thrown our way. And all of that presents such beautiful growth opportunities. So as parents, if we show up for ourselves, it's not only something that benefits us, but it's a beautiful example for our kids, right? Because they realize that they're not the center of the universe, and that's a good thing as well. And they also realize the importance of self-care.
Completely. I mean, I think it's something everyone should be doing, and it's a great way to teach your children about it when you're doing it for yourself. I do also think that a parent with any child does really struggle between the time spent on their child and focusing on themselves. So I'm wondering if you have any tips of how you found ways to have healthy boundaries. How did you find time for yourself? How did you create that boundary?
Yeah, boundaries are critical. and boundaries come in so many different forms. I mean, one of them is social media. You could very easily curate your content so that you are not spending time following people who drain the energy out of you, right? Like, you could surround yourself with people virtually and in person who just ignite your soul, who make you want to challenge yourself in different ways, that don't just, bring you down or are constantly complaining. So curating your content is definitely an important thing. The second thing is having a morning routine, some sort of morning routine. It does not have to be intense, and it doesn't have to take an hour. It could be, just taking a walk for a few minutes. Sure. Just, being out in nature, having some silence, listening to the birds, paying attention to the foliage and the beautiful flowers, just anything that sort of centers you and grounds you. And then I would also recommend some sort of meditation. A lot of people prefer guided meditation. I do transcendental meditation, which
Mm.
is without sound, and you don't have to be perfect at it. And that brings me to another tip. Give yourself grace. You know, if you have like a crazy morning and you're not able to have a morning routine one day, or you get the comeback box and for one reason or another, you skip a day, it's not the end of the world, right? Just go back the next day and continue on. So
Right.
sometimes we tend to beat ourselves up so much and we talk to ourselves so negatively that we would never talk to our worst enemy that way.
Right.
So we've got to just give ourselves kindness and grace, because guess what? We're still living through a pandemic right now. And
Right.
we don't, right? We don't have the answers for things. And we don't have control over anything, even our kids. And I know that's really hard for many parents to understand, but you have control over how you react. You don't have control over someone else. So that's an important part.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm a big fan of giving yourself grace. One of the first things in the box is the base of the box is organic cotton. And I ask you to feel the cotton and feel the texture on your skin and be as gentle with yourself as the cotton on your skin throughout the box and forever after, right? I also think part of being gentle, though, is what I like to call still observing without judgment. Just being present to what's going on and observing your own behavior, your immediate reactions, even if you're not acting on them. Um, for me, like for instance, I missed a day of the box because I was buried in work. Now, I gave myself grace, I was gentle on myself, but I am still observing that I missed a day and it only takes me 5 minutes to do the box. So, what that means is that if I didn't do my box, that means I didn't take 5 minutes for myself that day. I didn't have 5 minutes. And so, I'm not going to be hard on myself. But I do think that it's also good to keep being aware and staying in a mode of observation,
I
right?
totally agree with you, because there are lessons in those situations and
Yeah.
we have to make ourselves aware of them. And I think that's another important part of parenting. You know, we have these babies and we think that it is our job to protect them.
Yeah.
And yes, we need to protect them, but as they get older, we also need for them to learn how to fall
Yeah.
and fail and get back up. And if you think about it, all
Yeah.
of us as toddlers fell on our behinds, right? But we figured it out. We figured out how to get back up.
Right.
And most parents don't freak out when their toddlers fall. They know that it's sort of part of the process, right?
Right.
But somehow we lose that in the later years. And we think that it is just a mark against their future if they, don't get stellar grades, if they hand in a report that gets a low grade. Those are lessons that
Yeah.
kids learn about themselves. And if we just allow them the space to learn natural consequences, to
Mm-hmm.
also figure out that, you know what, I could have done something differently, because most kids do want to do well. But sometimes just hearing parents consistently tell them raises a lot of stress and anxiety within them. But if they are left to sort of suffer the consequences and think about that grade or that test score or what have you, then they may come to the natural conclusion of, you know what, that didn't work for me. Maybe I could try doing something differently or putting in a little more effort. And the bottom line is, if they haven't experienced falling or failing and figuring out how to get back up
Right.
in their teen years, in their young adult years, then how are they going to be handling all of the craziness that goes on when we become adults, right? So you got to
Totally.
build that muscle.
Totally. And I do think allowing them to experience that and learn and feel through that process is critical. I'm just wondering, do you have any advice when what parents are struggling with is perhaps a child that lacks motivation?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
isn't,
absolutely.
that isn't okay, they got bad grades and they're not that concerned about it because they say they don't want to go to college. So do you have any advice for someone who perhaps is in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to realize that not everyone is a student of conventional education. As much as we want them to be, our education system hasn't really evolved all too much in many, many decades. But it is possible to nurture a lifelong learner. And that is by tapping into our own curiosity and maybe sharing activities with our kids that makes them more curious about things. Maybe it's doing activities that like help us to create something, to build something, even doing puzzles, or building things or doing artwork. And then just expose them to a bunch of different things. So in our situation, because of Brandon's bones growing so differently, he wasn't able to enjoy sports like most kids in their younger years are able to. But we decided that we were going to sign him up for an acting class. And that was really the best decision. He absolutely loved it, started performing, and continued to perform for almost 10 years. Wow. Which enabled him to find his voice. And now he uses his voice to get paid. So he was not a stellar straight A student in the least, because things weren't being taught to him in a way that just ignited his brain. However, he is such a curious learner that he's constantly reading and learning and speaking to people and connecting with people and surrounding himself with those that have more knowledge on different areas of expertise. Yeah. But he is also the go-to for other areas of expertise. So I would say don't flip out if they are not the typical straight A students. It's interesting because in my childhood, I thought the only way that I would get my parents' love and attention is to be a straight A student. And like, that is what motivated me. But he did not feel that, he needed to do that. And believe me, we encouraged, and there were certain subjects that he did really well in, but it wasn't the end of the world. You know why? Because I had perspective, because I realized that, there were times like in third grade when he had his second set of leg surgeries that we had to have a homebound teacher for a few months while he recovered. And third grade is when you learn your multiplication tables, and like that was never the same for him. So math was not his strong suit. But that's okay, because perspective allows you to see that there are going to be certain skills that your kids have that may really just drive them to want to learn more and develop this hunger. So I would say really cultivate those beautiful interests that your kids have, and focus on their strengths rather than on their weaknesses. And there is something that comes to mind when I heard Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, share in a talk that she gave. And she said that at the dinner table, her father would not say, "What did you learn today?" but rather he would say, "What did you fail at today?" So she grew up with the mindset of, you always try new things, and it's okay to fail, because it just means that you're learning.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk about this before, really cultivating that curiosity. And I think, what I hear when you talk about it is perhaps as a parent, what there is to do is just continue to expose your child to more things, to cultivate that curiosity, expose them to things, because I think that's the way that you're going to find what they are uniquely interested in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes let them lead the way. It might be
Yeah.
things that you have absolutely no interest in, but maybe they will teach you something. You
Sure.
know, but I really I don't want people to walk away thinking expose them to all these things at one time, because that gets
Sure.
really overwhelming on kids.
Okay.
Make sure you give them enough downtime. And what this pandemic has really taught my family is that we love the outdoors. We never knew how much we craved being out in nature
Mhm.
until this pandemic hit and we weren't able to travel. And so we've discovered all these incredible hiking trails, all these beautiful state and national parks that we never had the time to go to.
Yeah.
And when we take walks or hikes and are out in nature and just focus on breathing and taking steps forward, it's amazing what a reset that makes.
Yeah.
And so we don't even have to be like talking the entire time. But I remember Thanksgiving, both kids were home. We went out as a family, for an hour during the day, and we took a
Yeah.
beautiful hike. And it just was such a feeling of connection
Hmm.
and a reset. And sometimes you just need to be able to reset everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the past year has been a return to nature for a lot of us with things that have been closed. And I got to be honest, I'm not mad about it. Like,
Yes.
I think it was time, and I think it's great. And for the individual as well as the family. So I love that you're doing that. And I want to be respectful of your time, Sylvia. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your wisdom. Everyone, if you want to get in touch with Sylvia, I'm going to link her in the bio, but her Instagram is Speak Beyond Words. And quick reminder, the box is 10% off with the code in the chat, Parent Live, until midnight tonight. And one lucky person is going to win Sylvia's son's book, 10 Feet Tall. And I wrote down the number 4. So it's going to be the 4th person who joined today, who is Scott Cowles, who I know. Hi, Scott. And Scott, we will reach out to you and get you that book.
Congratulations, Scott.
Congrats, Scott. So Sylvia, thank you again. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
No, I would just love whoever watches this video, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Please feel free to connect. And I really hope that I am able to impact at least one person that listens to these words. I know that the comeback box is going to make tremendous impact on everyone who purchases a box or gifts a box. And it's going to have such a beautiful ripple effect into our society, because you are really providing people with the tools to just get grounded and grow from the inside out.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I know, you and Brandon have already impacted millions of lives with your speaking engagements and books. And I know that you two are on an incredible journey as well. So thank you again, Sylvia. It was lovely spending time with you.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone who joined. And yeah, feel free to comment and keep asking questions and reaching out. And I'll be here next week, Thursdays at 4 Pacific. Okay. Bye. Have a
Good
great
night.
night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.